Congressman Steve King joining us today, and thank you very much for being here. Always great to talk with you, and appreciate you coming here and visiting us in Clay County. Let's start off right away. A hot topic right now, immigration. As you well know, the conversation going on in Washington right now, trying to find ways to work around the immigration issue. Give us a few thoughts on that, if you would.
Well, immigration, we should remember, is the most complex issue that we ever deal with in Congress. It touches every aspect of our lives. It touches economics, it touches taxes, it touches our national security, jobs for Americans are affected, and the makeup of our nation for generations and centuries to come is affected by our immigration law. It's clear. Many will say that we are a nation of immigrants, therefore we must welcome all immigrants, both legal and illegal. We're the most welcoming nation on the planet, and we are a nation of immigrants, but so is every other nation a nation of immigrants. If you just study the history, you'll learn that, and I can make that case in any country that anyone might want to mention. So we're also, though, a nation of laws. And I often talk about the pillars of American exceptionalism, and most of them are in the Bill of Rights: freedom of speech, religion, the press, assembly, the right to keep and bear arms, property rights, the rights we have against double jeopardy, being able to face a jury of our peers, and the right that we are innocent until proven guilty, the powers that are not enumerated in the Constitution to the federal government devolve to the states, or respectively to the states or the people. Those are all pillars of American exceptionalism. A free enterprise economy is a pillar of American exceptionalism, but what holds that all together? An essential pillar of American exceptionalism is the rule of law. And we have people that think that it's politically expedient to grant amnesty to people who have broken our laws to either get or stay here. And they just say that, well, we haven't had a president that's enforced the laws in a while, and so we're not going to get this president to enforce the laws. Therefore, we should capitulate to his unconstitutional whim and conform to the president's whim, rather than use our judgment and uphold our oath to uphold the Constitution. By the way, the President takes an oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That's in Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. And he's not doing that. He's not maintaining his own oath of office. But what we have is an executive branch problem, not a legislative branch problem. If we'd enforced the laws we have, we wouldn't have this problem with immigration that we have today. The advocates for amnesty have conflated the two terms, illegal immigration and illegal immigration. We should always listen to that, separate them, and say, which are you talking about? Is it the sunrise or is it the sunset? Is it up or is it down? Is it black or is it white? Is it legal immigration or is it illegal immigration? When you conflate the two, then they blur the subject. And now there's an effort to pass, even though the Senate bill is dead on arrival in the House, there's an effort to do a number of things that's described step by step, that step-by-step approach. I don't believe that we can pass anything out of the House that improves our immigration scenario, that has a chance to get through the Senate and to the President's desk for a signature, unless attached to it is amnesty in some form. And if we grant legalization to a group or a universe of people because it pulls at our heartstrings, and believe me, it pulls at mine too. But if we do that, that is a path to citizenship, and it's an argument to expand that universe to all people here that are here illegally. So here's the bottom line works to be this. The Senate bill is perpetual and retroactive amnesty. That means that amnesty goes on forever. Anyone who could get into America from this point forward could expect to stay in America unless they committed a felony or 3 misdemeanors that are not clearly defined. And even those who have been deported in the past get an invitation that says, come on back into America, we really didn't mean it. So that's why I say that it's perpetual amnesty. It goes on forever, and it's retroactive. It's because those that have been deported get to come back to America. And we promise border security. No serious person can promise that it's actually seriously going to happen, not under this president, and probably unlikely that it would be the next president. So if we're not going to be able to secure our borders, and there's no reason why, if this is the strategy that we will secure our borders and then we'll grant amnesty to the people inside them, why not just go out and secure the borders, then come back and talk to me? That's the division that we have. But if you grant a legal status ends up in citizenship. It has historically, it will going into the future, and so that is what we should realize. It is granting citizenship. Legalization status is the equivalent of granting citizenship. It's just a matter of time, and there's no prospect that we would be seriously enforcing immigration law against anyone who could get into America. So perversely, under this scenario, the Gang A8's bill, or what appears to be emerging from the House, is this: that the only people that wouldn't have a say about immigration policy would be Americans. And the ones who would have a say about immigration policy would be those who vote with their feet, figure out how to get into America, legally or illegally. They'd get to stay. That means that this is not 11 million people, it's not 22, it's probably not 33 million people, it's probably more like 55 million people that would be swept in with this kind of immigration policy. And it's wrong, it destroys the rule of law, and we could never reconstruct the rule of law, at least with regard to immigration, any time in the foreseeable future.
Now, the argument on the other side, part of what the argument is, well, they're already here, we don't have the resources to enforce it, we don't have, how much would it cost us to go on and actually do a sweeping roundup and clear all of the people who are, what they want to refer to as technically undocumented citizens, I think is a term we use now too, out. And if we let them all in, we can start taxing them and create revenue and those sort of things. But it comes down to the fact, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's about the rule of law. And basically letting them in regardless of how we've ignored it for so long. I understand it's going to be a daunting task, but letting them in is basically saying, no, we're just completely disregarding the law as it stands or as it's written today. Is that correct?
Well, yes. And you think of this like a family. If, say, it's mom and dad and 5 kids, and 1 or 2 of the kids decide, I'm not going to comply with the rules of this house. I'm going to break them. I'll come and go when I please. I'll get into the cookie jar when I want. I'll mow the lawn if I want. I'll carry out the garbage if I want, but I'm not going to live by the rules of this house. And so you set down those rules and you try to apply those to the other 4 kids because they might conform, but one won't. What do you end up with then? You end up with chaos, you end up with jealousy, you end up with friction, and you end up with a culture within your family that we know is not constructive. This country is the same way. It's just a great big country of 316 million people. We have 100 million Americans of working age who are simply not in the workforce. Now, some are in school, some are retired early, some physically are incapable of doing physical work anyway. And yet there are still tens of millions of Americans who are not in the workforce who should be. We have 80 different means-tested welfare programs. That nobody can even give you the list from memory, let alone understand how they interrelate with each other or how people react to them. But I will tell you that in my family, if I've got 100 million people in this American family, or one of the kids that's not doing their share of the work, I'm going to put them to work. We need to get more people out to work, more Americans to work. We have at least 8 million illegal aliens working in America. That's 8 million jobs that could be opened up to legal immigrants or to natural-born or naturalized citizens. And at the meanwhile, there's a discount on the cheap labor for illegal labor. And the net average cost for an illegal working in the United States to the taxpayer to support the services and things that they can't support because their wages are so low is $11,600 per illegal immigrant per year. That's a number from the Heritage Foundation study that was done a few months ago. And the net cost to the Senate amnesty bill would be, first of all, they would pay 9.4, let me get my numbers right here. They would draw down $9.4 trillion over their lifetime in benefits of one kind or another. They would pay $3.1 trillion in taxes. There's a net cost to the taxpayer of $6.3 trillion. Now, if it's going to cost us $6.3 trillion net to legalize the people that are here illegally, that's a lot of money that might otherwise go to something else. I'm not suggesting we do it all with law enforcement. I'm not suggesting that we do a big sweep and start to line people up and deport them that way. I would suggest that when local law enforcement encounters people that are unlawfully present in the United States, they should be removed. The law requires that. That's one of those directives that the president has ordered ICE not to enforce, which I think is a lawless act in itself. So what we do is we seal the border. And I can do that with the resources that we're spending today. Today we're spending $6.554 million on our southern border per mile. Now think of this. We're building 4-lane highway, interstate highway across Iowa. Well, actually, I'm thinking Highway 20, for $4 million a mile. And we're spending $6.554 million per every mile of even the desert down there just to guard it. Now, if you just go down there every year and put in about a third of those in resources, it wouldn't take even a third of that in a single year would get us a fence, a wall, and a fence built all the way. And I haven't suggested that we do that. We just build a fence, a patrol road, a concrete wall, another patrol road, and another fence, and do that where the traffic is the heaviest, and then keep building it out until they stop going around the ends. We can figure that out. There's a path there. I've seen it. But we can seal the border. We seal the border where 80 to 90% of the illegal drugs consumed in America come from or through Mexico. So we seal the border for national security reasons, persons of interest from nations of interest coming across that border. That means possible terrorists from terrorist-producing states. And the drugs coming across the border and the illegal human traffic and the drug cartels are in the business of human traffic, according to Jan Brewer, the governor of Arizona. But we can seal the border with the resources we have. We shut off the jobs magnet by two things. One is E-Verify mandatory, or better yet, my bill, the New IDEA Act, which eliminates the deductibility of wages and benefits paid to illegals and gives the employer safe harbor if he uses E-Verify. Those tools, and let local law enforcement, when they encounter people unlawfully here, enforce the law, call in ICE, and actually follow through. That then restores the respect for the rule of law. And those whose roots go so deep in this country that they want to stay, they can stay in America until such time as they're encountered by the law. Now, some say, well, we're forcing them to live in the shadows. My argument would be, they came here to live in the shadows. They got here on their own. They can either live in the shadows because that's what they came to do, or they can figure out a way to go home on their own. That's not too tough of a pill to deliver to people who have, most of them, willingly broken our laws. And this purpose is to restore the rule of law so that America can go on and be an even greater country than we are today. We cannot be if we don't have respect for the law.